Welcome to Secret Ballet Coach. Today we're doing a segment of Intro to Ballet all about Tendu. Today's Intro to Ballet lesson is all about Tendu. So, what is Tendu? You might recognize it as this movement. What does Tendu mean? Tendu means to stretch, and it comes from one of the fundamental movements of ballet, étendre, there's 7, and that means to stretch. So it's like the hyphenated version. We just say tendu instead of étendre. So tendu is one of the early movements you're going to do at the bar. It's often something that you will do for several exercises. So you use it a lot, even in pliés, for example, to transition from one position to the next. But there are some very important functions for tendu. So we're going to talk about what some of those are and how to make sure you are doing your tendus correctly. So let's begin. Tendu is mostly a strengthening exercise, and it strengthens pretty much your entire leg, but it also strengthens your feet and a lot of the muscles in your hips. So let's just go over what all of these things are. Let's start at the bottom. So tendu strengthens your feet. When you tendu, you're going to start, let's say, in a first position. You're going to make sure that your foot is nice and flat against the floor. You're not rolling, you're not sickling. You have big toe, pinky toe, center of your heel nice and evenly weighted against the floor, and you're about to start your tendu. Now, one thing that's important is that you maintain pressure on the bottom of your foot as you start to move your leg. So there's a couple reasons for this. It's going to engage the muscles at the top of your leg and in your hip so that they're using the right muscles to push your leg forward, but also the pressure against your foot is going to help the muscles in your foot develop strength as well. So you're going to begin by keeping your foot flat, and then you're going to slowly slide it out, maintaining some pressure on that foot to your demi-pointe, right? From there, you're going to extend your toes. Now, between demi-pointe and extending your toes, there's no weight on your toes. You're not pushing on it at all. So you're pressing, but you're not leaning on that leg. So you're going to keep all of your weight on your standing leg in the center where you started in first position, and you're just going to press that foot out, and by the time it gets to fully stretched, there should be no weight on that toe. And then when you come in, you're going to bend your toes, put the pressure back on the bottom of your foot, and slowly pull it closed using all those muscles in the top of your hip. So if every tendu has this friction against the floor, the pressure on the way out and then the pull and resistance on the way in, you're going to strengthen the bottom of your foot, the muscles in your toes. You're also going to strengthen your calves. You're going to strengthen your quads, your hamstrings, your turnout muscles in your hips, and your glutes. So it pretty much works your entire leg. Now, one thing you might notice is that you do multiple tendu exercises. So part of the reason for that is we will do tendus at graduating faster speeds. So usually your first tendu exercise is relatively slow, and that's primarily to activate the muscles in your hip, give you time to really push against the floor and kind of wake up those foot muscles and get them moving. And then we start moving the tendus a little bit faster. And what we will do is the combinations with tendus will sometimes involve other movements. So there may be pliés, there may be dégagés, there may be weight transfers, there may be lots of other pieces of movement put in with your tendu. And the different speeds are mostly to target different areas. So if you're doing really, really fast tendus to the side, that might be to target your inner thighs and like the top part of your hips. If you're doing lots of piqué sort of lifting off the floor movements, it might be to strengthen those quads so that you get a really nice, long, straight leg position, really strong. Or if you're doing lots of tendus to the back, it might be to really work that back arabesque shape and get that feeling of what it's like to have your knee completely straight. So So there's a lot of reasons that we do multiple Tendu exercises, and the main reason is that teachers will use different tempos and speeds and different combinations and dynamics to target different areas for strengthening at the bar. One of the key things you want to be looking at in your Tendu is the shape of your foot. A common mistake in Tendu is you will slide your foot out and you will leave your heel down, creating a sickled foot. So a sickled foot is where, instead of your instep being lifted, it sinks down and your pinky toe actually becomes like the longer side of the angle on your foot. You always want your foot to be either straight, let me point it at the camera, either straight or, when not weight bearing, slightly winged. But I would say if you are starting out, focus entirely on it being straight. So when you Tendu in any position, you should not have a sunk instep and a sickled foot. It should always be straight, or like I said, when it is not weight bearing, it could be a little bit lifted in your instep, which is called a wing. When you're in ala seconde, I would especially say it's straight. And when you're in arabesque, without leaning on that toe, you could have that pinky toe lifting so that your instep is really prominent, and that could be slightly winged. But most importantly, you do not want to sickle that foot, because if you Tendu over and over again with a sickled foot, eventually you are going to overstretch the tendons on the outside of your ankle, making it much easier for you to sprain or twist your ankle when you land from something with impact like a jump. The next thing that's very important, whenever you do Tendus at the bar, unless you are supposed to close with plie or plie is part of the movement, you should be closing with completely straight knees. This is going to be especially challenging in fifth, but it's very important to teach your body how to hold your knee completely straight, and it takes a lot of strength in your quad. So every time you Tendu out and close, there should be no point at which your knee bends and then closes straight. It should stay straight and stay straight. Now, this is very hard in fifth because the angle in fifth, most of the time people are not really holding their turnout 100% in fifth. So what happens is they put a little pressure on their knees, and as they close, they have to bend in order to put their feet where they want them to go, which is incorrect, but many people do it. So you want to keep both of your knees completely straight, even in fifth, which means that from your fifth position, you have to really be honest about where your turnout is. If you cannot do a flat fifth, don't. You're just not ready yet. It will come if you practice. So I'm going to start with a nice open fifth. My turnout's not perfect, so it's going to be about here. From that position, rotating the top of your thighs to hold that turnout, pulling up your quad to keep your knees straight, pressure against the floor to press your foot out, and then when you close, you keep that knee straight. And it is very, very difficult, but if you practice it, you will feel all of those inner thigh muscles, all of the top of your hamstring and your glutes activating to help you close those legs together. And that's the strength that you want to build. So every time you Tendu and you close and you let that little bend cheat happen, you are missing out on the opportunity to strengthen it. Now, you might notice that even in some of my dance along videos, I might not be doing this perfectly. Don't do as I do as I say. So it is something that you are always going to have to work on, and it's very hard. It takes a lot of strength to close fifth with completely straight legs, but it is worth trying to do. So I really encourage you, every time you're in class at the bar, try to keep those knees completely straight. The amount of strength you will build, the type of lines you'll be able to hold will be so much better if you do. Next is your hip position. So when you Tendu to the side, for example, you want to isolate your leg from your hips. So you don't want to do this, where you slide open that foot and your hip goes moving around with it. So in order to hold that still, your standing leg, whichever leg is staying planted on the ground, you have to really engage the top of that leg and the hip muscles to stabilize your pelvis. So think of it like a flagpole, right? So this is the pole, this is the flag, right? If that flag was made out of something stiff, not like droopy fabric, but something like cardboard, right? And this flagpole was not strong enough, it would sort of move from the weight, right? It's very similar with your standing leg. You have to keep it strong enough so that as your working leg moves through each position, it's not pushing your standing leg with it. You want those to move separate of each other. And the only way to do that is to fortify with musculature. So you actually have to hold this leg still with your muscles to enable your other leg to move freely, isolated and free of your standing leg. So when you tendu, you should never see your pelvis moving with your tendu. Your hips should stay completely out of the picture, your standing leg holding very still as your working leg moves. That's going to be the correct way to tendu. Okay, last but not least, if you're taking class and the tendus are getting faster and you feel yourself starting to do it wrong, what do? It happens to the best of us. Sometimes it's just a teacher trying to challenge you, and there's nothing wrong with that. What I will say is just do your best. You're not going to be able to perfect tendu because it's kind of impossible, in the sense that even some of the most accomplished professional ballet dancers I know, principal ballerinas at big companies, are always showing up and trying to make their tendu a little bit better. It's one of those movements that is kind of a lifelong pursuit. So don't beat yourself up if you can't totally close with straight legs and perfect turnout and use your foot and squeeze your inner thighs all at the same time on your first try. Don't despair if you can't on your millionth try. It's something you're always going to be working towards. But these are just some of the things that you can think of to be working towards as you tendu. Thank you so much for dancing with me today. If you liked today's class, please hit like and subscribe below. If you have any requests or questions, please comment below and let me know. And of course, you can always email me at secretballetcoach@gmail.com. Until next time, keep it on the QT.